to this Times Techies webinar. I'm Shilpa Fadnis and I have with me my colleague Sujit John. The two of us will moderate today's discussion. We hope you and your families are doing well and staying safe. Our discussion today is on building and embracing an open source world and about building a public cloud that's simple for developers and startups to use. A recent report from the Linux Foundation said about 39% of the companies had given open source talent more salary increases than other business areas. Many organizations are well past the stage where they want to just be consumers of open source software. They're ready to be participants in the actual development process of the software and tools that they're using. To discuss this, we have with us Mohan, the go-to-market lead at DigitalOcean for Asia Pacific. He's responsible for expanding the company's presence in new region in APAC through business development, developer startup community engagements, and PR. Earlier, he helped build the scale DigitalOcean's global startup program, Hatch, that supports early stage startups. Being only the second hire for DigitalOcean's internalized go-to-market strategies and partnerships with key ecosystem players such as accelerators, incubators, VC firms, developer communities in APAC. Prior to DigitalOcean, Mohan worked for NetApp, where he built and managed partnerships in India and Sri Lanka. DigitalOcean is currently hosting its Hacktoberfest, a month-long celebration of the open source community. In the past 8 years, Hacktoberfest has grown from an initial group of 676 participants to over 150,000 open source enthusiasts who show their support by contributing quality pull requests, participating in global events, and more. Those of you viewing this can send in questions to the Facebook comment box. Sujit and I will put them to Mohan. Mohan will make a short presentation and we'll get into the discussions. Over to you, Mohan.
Awesome. Thank you. Hello, everyone. And special thanks to Shilpa, Sujit, and the Times of India team for hosting me on the Times Techies webinar. This month especially, I think it's a great time for us to be doing this because Hacktoberfest is happening, and I'm particularly excited to come and speak to all of you about DigitalOcean as well as the initiative called Hacktoberfest. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it, but for those of you who are not, hopefully at the end of this session, you will be excited or enthusiastic and in terms of contributing and giving back to the open source community. With that said, I'll do a quick 15 to 20 minute presentation where I plan to give you an overview about how DigitalOcean is helping build a developer-friendly and startup-conducive cloud, and also will speak to you about our Hacktoberfest initiative. Some of you might be already familiar with DigitalOcean and using our offerings, but for those of you who are not familiar, DigitalOcean, a quick overview. We started the company back in 2012. We're headquartered in New York. We're a public cloud infrastructure company. As of today, we have 650,000 plus active customers globally in 100 plus countries, as well as we are about 600 plus employees around the world. When it comes to Net Promoter Score, I'm sure some of you are familiar. This speaks to what our customers think of us. A lot of companies like Apple are in the 50 to 60 range. So we fare fairly well, and that's something that we're really proud of, what our customers think of us when it comes to our offerings, when it comes to our service and support. So DigitalOcean fares in the 60 plus NPS score. We have data centers around the world. In India, we have a Bangalore data center. Another thing that DigitalOcean is really well known for is the content and tutorials that we put out, right? If you are a developer trying to learn a new developer technology, if you just search on Google for any developer related topic, one of the few first search results would be a DigitalOcean article that will come up. So, and these are not necessarily related to DigitalOcean products, but any topic that developers might want to learn about, might want to use, we put out a whole lot of content and tutorials out there for consumption, right? Earlier this year, we went IPO in March, and that's something that we are really excited about. We are a publicly traded company on NYSE. As a company, DigitalOcean, when we started back in 2012, what we realized was, while there were other cloud providers, a big need that was unmet by many of the other cloud providers was the developer segment, right? Developers' needs were very different to enterprises that some of these other cloud providers were built to serve. And we wanted to meet that need and address that market. So DigitalOcean was started as a developer cloud. We continue to be a developer cloud. We love developers and we want to super serve and serve them. And our mission is to simplify cloud computing so developers and businesses can spend more time creating software that changes the world. Our mission is to really empower a lot of developers who are building very exciting software, entrepreneurs who are going on to create a lot of new and interesting businesses. Instead of having to manage infrastructures, manage servers, we want to take a lot of that heavy lifting so that you can build your business and focus on your business. I wanted to also quickly speak to some of our values. As a company, we start with community. Community is a big part of what DigitalOcean does. Even the content that I spoke to earlier is a part of giving back to the community, right? We want to help a lot of developers learn, contribute to the ecosystem. And that's where we focus on a lot of community initiatives, as well as, and we end with love. Love is one of our values, be it love for our customers, our partners, our employees, one another. And in between the community and love aspect is the simplicity, the accountability, as well as the inclusiveness that we bring into our products and into our company philosophy itself. So some of you might be trying to understand, right? How does DigitalOcean position itself while there are a lot of other cloud providers and a lot of other options for you, right? For us, we started as a developer cloud, and over time, some of these developers have gone on to become entrepreneurs. They're working at startups and SMBs that are really driving the market forward. Today, our ideal customer profiles are developers and SMBs. We want to focus on them and super serve them. And these could be anybody from a student trying to understand what is this cloud computing all about and trying to prepare themselves for their career, or it could be a developer working at a startup, an MNC, or it could be digital entrepreneurs who are trying to build their business on the cloud. So they are our target audience that we try to serve and super serve. In terms of why developers love us, these are the things that really differentiate us in the market. One is simplicity, right? DigitalOcean was started with the mission of making cloud computing as simple as possible. Everything from our product philosophy tries to make the cloud very accessible, very easy to get started with. So that's really one of the cornerstones of our product portfolio, and also learning, right? People come to our platform not just to sign up as a customer, but also to learn, to enhance their skills, and to improve themselves professionally. So we put out a lot of tutorials. In fact, in addition to the tutorials, we have a Q&A forum where a lot of developers are helping each other answer each other's questions. So that's almost like a community that's kind of supporting itself. That's something through which we help enhance the learning opportunities for our community. The next is openness, right? I'll speak a little more about open source later on, but really open source is one of the cornerstones of our product philosophies as well. While other cloud providers, I think a key part of the business is proprietary software and licensing option. We believe building on the best of breed open source software is the way forward, right? At DigitalOcean, internally, we use a lot of open source software, and we know that as startups, you want to choose the best of breed software that's available in the market instead of getting locked into one company's software, right? For the long term. That's where using open source, contributing back to open source is become such a big part of our mission. And finally, value. As startups, a big part of your thinking is about where am I spending my bucks? If you're bootstrapped, if you're fundraised, all of that, your dollars become really important. So really how to get started really small and then grow. We want to grow with you and scale as you kind of get bigger. So that was about developers. When we moved on to SMB tech leaders, they need all of these, but for very different reasons, right? Simplicity, but they don't want to sacrifice technology selection and learning in the context of the work that they are doing right now. While philosophically learning more is great, but for SMB tech leaders, learning in the context of the work that they're immediately doing and the problem that they're solving immediately becomes really important. openness so that they don't have to rebuild in the future, and also value so that their costs and pricing is predictable and cost effective. So these are all the things that we were building for developers. It was easily sort of like transferable to the SMB community as well. And that's where we kind of cater to the startup and SMB community as well. In addition to all of those I spoke about, SMB leaders also require automation. How can a lot of their tasks be automated? So that's something that we provide as part of our portfolio. The other thing is peace of mind, right? Security, reliability, all of that become really important, especially today when data is the key part of your business. And also team efficiency. As you grow your team, should technology be a blocker? Should you be, as you grow and scale, you should be able to add the right people with the right skill set instead of only bringing in certified professionals on certain cloud players, right? So that way, with a small team, you should be able to build and manage your infrastructure while hiring for key roles within your company. So that's what we help a lot of startups do as well. So when we speak to a lot of developers and startups, this is what they tell us they're trying to do, right? When we are a small, experienced, professional SaaS team, what they want to do is they want to empower themselves with affordable, simple, performant, and reliable solutions with an easy learning curve. Your cloud provider should not take up a lot of your cost as well as your learning ability, right? So you're not learning to manage the infrastructure, but learning to really serve your customers with the business that you're building. So why do they want this? So that they can spend more time and resources on what's important, the key aspects of their business, and not necessarily managing infrastructure, building more successful products and business, and making the right decisions for the market, right? So this is what customers tell us, and this has been our journey. When we started back in 2012, we were a single product company. We had what were called droplets. These are nothing but virtual private servers. And our key USP was that it was at $5, you can get started on the cloud. We made it as accessible back then with highly performative SSD machines, and you can get started on the cloud in less than a minute. Even after all these years, close to 10 years, that promise still holds, right? Our starting prior plans are still at $5, but over the many years that we've been in the ecosystem, we've tried to learn from our users and our customers on what's important for them. At DigitalOcean, because simplicity is one of our key values, we are not focused on adding products and features for the sake of it. We are always trying to listen to our customers. What will make your life easier? Over the many years, customers have told us they want data centers in different parts of the world because they have regulations from different governments which require them to host their data in different countries. So we built out data centers in different parts. Over time, they told us, hey, your cloud is great. We want more reliability built into it. We want a lot more features. You were providing compute. Can you provide a storage, networking, monitoring, all of those? So those were key features for us to become a core complete cloud. That's what we added over the next couple of years. And more recently, startups and developers are telling us, you're a great infrastructure as a service player, but we don't want to manage infrastructure. Give us platform as a service, right? We don't want to be bothered by infrastructure decisions. So you make the infrastructure decisions and give us more abstracted layer to operate on. So that's where we've added PaaS, which is platform as a service, and a lot of managed service offerings, including Kubernetes and databases. And really where we are headed towards in the next couple of years is to really build the cloud for SMBs, right? What do SMBs really want? What can we build them? And more recently, we made an acquisition of a company called Nimbella, which in addition to our infrastructure as a service and platform as a service capabilities, adds serverless, which is the next region of growth for a lot of startups, right? They don't even want to make a lot of the infrastructure and platform decisions. They want another layer of abstraction, which really abstracts infrastructure decisions away from them while letting them focus on the key aspects of their business. So that's our strategy for the next couple of years. This slide speaks specifically to the products that we've introduced over the years. We've introduced something called App Platform, which is a cloud native kind of deployment method that builds on our compute and Kubernetes platform And really, it's our platform as a service offering. I will not necessarily speak to this, but it highlights some of the key features that our customers have asked for, and we've added to our portfolio over the years. So what we do offer is really a very simplified infrastructure as a service experience, but more recently, platform as a service experience as well. So these are some of the products and capabilities that are there. While we try to make our platform and portfolio really simple, we don't want to take away options from you. So when it comes to Linux-based offerings, we've introduced everything that our customers have told us is top of mind for them. They've told us, especially for different workloads like gaming, for video streaming, they require highly optimized infrastructure. So that's when we introduce performance droplets or storage optimized droplets, memory optimized droplets. So those are certain things that we've been introduced over time. And when they spoke to us about building more security features, we've introduced private networking, cloud firewalls, and other features that makes our cloud really secure for startups to use. I did speak earlier about our managed offerings that we've kind of introduced, which is managed Kubernetes, our app platform and managed databases, and our load balancers, which really abstracts a lot of the infrastructure decisions that startups need to make. Many of the companies that we work with have very small teams, right? 5 to 10 people. And if you are really creating a complex infrastructure, then you have to dedicate a lot of resources to manage that infrastructure. With us, we understand the customers that we cater to have 1 or 2 people that manage their entire infrastructure. So we try to make their life as simple as possible by providing very simplified infrastructure. But in addition to that, a lot of documentation and tutorials that they can self-serve with, right? So that's where we come into the picture. This is a snapshot of our global data centers. We have 13 data centers. In the APAC region, we have Bangalore, and the closest one is Singapore, and in EMEA as well as in the US markets. In addition to that, we continue to build a lot of the community, the guides and libraries and documentation that I spoke about. I'm happy to kind of drop links later in the chat if some of you are interested in checking out the documentation that might be helpful for you to understand more about developer related topics. We also support a marketplace for a lot of open source software, right? Everything from developer tools to frameworks that will help. So any specific technology or tool that developers tell us will be useful and that can run on DigitalOcean, we make it a one-click on our marketplace, which makes it really easy for you to launch and use. So if you are a developer looking for different kinds of tools, do check out our marketplace as well. With that, I want to quickly kind of change tracks here and move on to our Hacktoberfest, which is something I'm super excited about. So what is Hacktoberfest and why does DigitalOcean do this year on year, right? So Hacktoberfest is our month-long celebration of open source, which is organized by DigitalOcean. It was started all the way back in 2014. And over the years, we partnered with many great companies who resonate with our philosophy of contributing and giving back to the open source community. So what happens during Hacktoberfest? In the month of October, we invite all open source enthusiasts, developers, even beginners to contribute to open source projects. We understand open source is really built on the goodwill of a lot of people who are contributing without expecting a reward, right? Many of them don't even get paid to work on open source kind of projects. And this is our way of rewarding them and appreciating that the work that they do. So we invite anybody who's hosting an open source project on, typically these are hosted on platforms like GitHub and GitLab, to add a label called Hacktoberfest, indicating to others in the community that they're participating in Hacktoberfest and are open for contributions, right? So any project that has a Hacktoberfest label indicates to others that they can contribute, and contributions can happen in multiple ways. They can fix a bug, they can write documentation, they can add features to projects. And it's really a celebration of open source. People, without expecting anything, giving back to one another, helping improve the quality of open source projects, right? Other ways of participating in Hacktoberfest include organizing an event, bringing developers together. More recently, it's become all virtual, but earlier we used to have groups of hundreds of developers coming together and hacking away and contributing to each other's projects. People can mentor each other. Year on year, we are surprised at the number of new people who get introduced to open source. And this year, we've also made an option to donate directly monetarily to open source projects because there are a lot of open source projects that are solving key problems that are used heavily, but are not necessarily funded to keep them going. So this year, we've opened up another channel where people can contribute monetarily and directly to open source projects. A quick history about Hacktoberfest. I did mention about us starting all the way back in 2014, and this is our 8th year of Hacktoberfest. The first year that we started, like Shilpa mentioned earlier, we had about 676 people who signed up. It was a small initiative where we said, hey, what can we do in the open source space to kind of bring developers together? So the first year we had 500 plus completions and 50,000 plus pull requests. And for everybody who completed 50 commits, back then the bar was very high. We said 50 commits to get a t-shirt. We had these signature t-shirts that we produced, and wherever in the world you were, we would ship a t-shirt for you. And the t-shirt over the years has become a symbol of you earning something that is very signature and limited edition for the work that you've done in the open source community and giving back to the community, right? So that was year one, and very encouraged by the results that we saw in year one. Hacktoberfest was back in 2015, and that year we saw 14,000 plus people sign up and close to 50,000 pull requests that happened. We changed the minimum barrier from 50 commits to 4 pull requests. We wanted more and more people to participate and this was back in 2015 when open source was really becoming into our consciousness, coming into our consciousness, right? A lot of people were just getting to know what open source is and how to participate. So we really wanted to amplify and expedite that sort of growth that we were seeing. And again, in 2016, we saw close to 30,000 people who signed up. For the first time, we also introduced what were meetup kits, saying if you are a community organizer, you want to organize your own event, take the meetup event kit, which has a lot of goodies for you to kind of and swag for you to get started in terms of making it really easy for you to organize an event, but also helping educate others in terms of how they can participate and contribute to open source. All the pictures that you're seeing on these slides are really sent to us from people participating globally. There are not just enthusiasts, but there are teams, there are companies, and today even enterprises have their own version of Hacktoberfest internally to help encourage their employees to participate and contribute in the open source software world. So that was 2016. In 2017, the numbers grew to 75,000 plus people who signed up and 240,000 plus pull requests that happened. We, again, year on year, we tried to make small additional and incremental sort of like improvements to the program itself, introducing a hashtag and really bringing that community closer so that they can contribute and participate. And then in 2018, which was our 5th year of Hacktoberfest, we introduced new guidelines, and every year, if you see, the t-shirts have changed. The developer community loves it. They kind of look forward to the unraveling of the design for the year, and our teams put in a lot of thought in terms of what designs and colors are working for developers these days that would make it really something they want to work towards, right? And in 2018, we had 46,000 plus people who signed up and participated in Hacktoberfest. In 2019, we had 130,000 plus people who participated. Again, I think with the number of people participating, you can only imagine how complicated our logistics became in terms of sending out t-shirts to people anywhere in the world, right? So that was an additional challenge we were trying to solve. How do we get t-shirts to people sooner and really make them celebrate that and participate in with a lot of more enthusiasm. Last year was very interesting for Hacktoberfest, right? For the first year, I think we were all in lockdown mode. No events could happen. Earlier, we would host people in our office. We would go to other offices to participate. And there was just so much more to that celebration. But last year, because it was all virtual, we came up with the initiative to say, you can either choose your t-shirt or you can choose trees instead of teas. So that was a campaign we ran, and a lot of developers chose to help kind of offset the carbon footprint by choosing trees. Now, we partnered with a nonprofit that was planting trees on our behalf, what we call the DigitalOcean forest. And we would developers could choose for their contributions to plant a forest to plant a tree in the forest. We had close to 170,000 signups last year. And this year, I think it's to be seen. As of today, we are already 150,000 plus people who participated, and we have another couple of more days to go in the month, right? So hopefully some of that has kind of made you curious to learn and participate in the Hacktoberfest event. Over the next 1 or 2 slides, I'm just going to give you quick tips or resources. If you are looking to participate, we would really urge, it's not too late for you to get started. You can do really small and simple improvements to projects and contribute in a better way. Of course, we are really trying to avoid spam. That was a challenge that we had to deal with, especially in the run towards getting a free t-shirt. A lot of people would spam, and that was something that we had to address last year in terms of how do we reduce spam for our maintainers, but really improve the quality of open source contributions. So this year, the rules remain pretty much the same. You need to do 4 pull requests for any project. This year, in addition to GitHub, we've added GitLab. So wherever your projects are open source projects, if you can use the Hacktoberfest label, you're really indicating to the community that you're accepting contributions from anybody. Once you complete your 4 pull requests, and those pull requests are accepted by the maintainer of the project, you get to receive a t-shirt, or you can choose to donate a tree. We are also couple of things that we've introduced. We're trying to highlight contributors, even for contributors who take 4 PR actions, which is they either accept your pull request or decline it and manage it as, or mention it as spam. Some of those actions contribute to maintainers as well. We want to kind of express gratitude for the maintainers. So we want to recognize their efforts in participating in Hacktoberfest as well. So this year, I spoke about some of our partners, AppWrite and DeepSource. They are very active in the open source community. Intel has been a great partner for us year on year, coming back and participating in Hacktoberfest. GitLab, in addition to GitHub, again, we see a lot of developers choosing both platforms. So we wanted to increase the options there. We're also focusing on maintainers. So maintainers get to win a t-shirt as well, and the direct donations to open source projects. This is for contributors. I did speak about the 4 pull requests across those platforms, and how your PRs must either have an Hacktoberfest accepted label by the maintainer, or it should be approved and merged into their projects. So that's how your PRs get counted. For maintainers, you can take any of these 4 actions. You can add the Hacktoberfest accepted label to a PR. You can leave it in approving review. We understand some of you get lots of PRs, so you need time to review and accept them. You can merge it into your project or add a label containing spam or invalid. You don't have to accept all spam PRs that come to your project as well. So very quickly, before I wrap up and take questions, why does DigitalOcean organize Hacktoberfest, right? We believe people create awesome stuff, and we want to encourage that. It's a great learning opportunity especially for someone starting off. Open source is going to be the future, where you can create the best of use and create the best of breed software. So we want to enable that sort of like learning, and also year on year, like you've seen, we bring in new community members into the open source world. Helps grow real world experience. It's been very heartening for us to understand how many people who participated in Hacktoberfest or at different companies also got themselves internships and job opportunities through Hacktoberfest, right? So we get to hear some of those experiences as well. Another thing is introducing people to free and open source software, which is really the way to go. And it makes contributing not just about code. Coding is great if you can code and contribute and solve and fix bugs for a project. That's great, but you can also write documentation. You can there are other ways of contributing to a project as well. So that's something that we would encourage you to do. You don't have to be a techie to participate in Hacktoberfest. It creates job opportunities. And a lot of times what we've seen is somebody who's contributed in year one becomes a maintainer themselves. They have their own passion projects that they're working on that they open it up for people to contribute and participate in. So that's really the power of Hacktoberfest. And this year's t-shirt, for those of you who are interested and excited to know about, so this is one of my colleagues posing with the 2021 t-shirt design. And finally, if you're interested where to get started, there is hacktoberfest.digitalocean.com. Go ahead and sign up. There is a very detailed resources page, which speaks to a lot of the FAQs in terms of if you're just getting started. It also identifies which projects are there out there that you can contribute to. We're also big on the code of conduct. We believe the open source world, there is a certain sort of code of conduct that you need to follow, not spamming open source maintainers, but really improving the quality of open source projects. So please ensure you follow that code of conduct. There is also a Discord channel where a lot of my colleagues are hanging out. If you have questions, want to speak to them, want to understand more about how you can participate, you can also discover projects on GitHub, GitLab, just by looking up Hacktoberfest. With that, just before I wrap up, that's the link for hacktoberfest.digitalocean.com. And if any of you are interested in testing out DigitalOcean, there's also a $100 free trial that we're giving for people attending this webinar. You can go to do.co/timestechies. And with that, over to you, Shilpa, if there are any questions. If you have any questions as you listen to this.
Can you stop the presentation, Mohan?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned internships. What you said people who participated got internships. What did you say?
That's correct. I think a lot of times these community events that people would organize earlier, even startups and businesses would really open up they would host an event for Hacktoberfest and open it up to the community. If anybody wanted to come from outside and participate, they could. And it's just led to a very natural sort of like collaboration. Somebody saying, hey, I'm interested in this coding language, I'm working on it. And they did a great job in contributing to a certain project. They've been identified for internships and job opportunities that has naturally kind of resulted from Hacktoberfest.
Okay. Very interesting. India participation, what is your sense? Last year, have any idea? How was it compared to the total global number of 160,000 something that you had?
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but India was definitely among the top countries participating, right? In fact, I can probably speak to the number of events because that's top of mind recall. Last year, because for the first time, everything became virtual. We had more than 700 plus events that happened around the world where people were having these virtual events and gatherings. They were themselves kind of organizing. And a lot of that came from India, right? India is a very active participant in Hacktoberfest, and just the developer community is very thriving in India, and they're very interested in participating in a lot of such initiatives.
Yeah, even the open source community, they're very active.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Because there's this concern that there are not enough open source projects that are originating in India and all that.
Yeah, I think that is changing very soon, Sujit. I think we're seeing a lot of startups participate in open source initiatives, but also actively use. In fact, very recently, even last year and this year, we partnered with FOSS United. I'm not sure if you've heard of FOSS United, right? So that's a new not-profit that's been set up, a foundation, if you will, to encourage a lot of open source projects. A lot of VCs and startups who scaling startups are involved in that initiative. So there is an active movement to kind of encourage that sort of drive towards open source. So it's happening, definitely. And from the way we are seeing developers adopt open source and actively participate in it, I think it is just a matter of time where we will see a lot more push towards open source.
Okay. FOSS is the one that Zerodha and all are involved in, right?
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. So we've been partnering with them. In fact, this year, I think in November, they have their hackathon and a lot of the hackathon as well as the projects that are participating in open source get to win monetary rewards as well.
It's the first time they're holding a hackathon, is it? FOSS United?
FOSS United had it last year as well in the same month of November, and this year they're bringing it back.
Okay. Shilpa?
Mohan, in one of your slides, you spoke about autonomous teams, how enterprises are replacing them with autonomous teams. Can you give us some more color on that? And which part of the tech stack do you see a lot of these teams onboarded?
Could you clarify that question when you say autonomous teams?
Yeah, in one of your slides, when you had that concentric circles, you said enterprise replaces autonomous teams. So if you can talk about that.
Yeah. I think that slide, what I was trying to indicate was we as a company are not very enterprise focused. We understand their requirements are very different. While there are other cloud providers that claim to cater to across the board, developers, startups, SMBs, and enterprises, we don't necessarily cater to that. For us, it's a lot of autonomous teams that are trying to build things on the cloud in a very simple and very, because for a lot of startups, going to market fast is also a requirement, right? So how can cloud really enable that motion instead of really becoming a barrier where you now need a lot of certifications to even manage your infrastructure, a lot of internal intelligence to even understand your billing, to understand new products that are constantly being launched, features. So then it becomes a big sort of like a hurdle for you to just keep yourself up to date on your cloud infrastructure instead of actually managing your business, right? So we empower a lot of the autonomous teams that are trying to go to market faster by leveraging the simplicity of our offering.
Okay. So we have some questions coming in. This one is from Samshvi Holi. You spoke about how your cloud offering is easy to use for developers who don't need to have platform-specific certifications. How can a non-computer science fresh grad learn how to use DigitalOcean's cloud offering?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So DigitalOcean, like I said, I think one is our tutorials. So if you can look up digitalocean.com and go to our community section, there's a whole lot of tutorials, 30,000 plus tutorials. So any computer language that you're looking to learn, be it Python, be it any of those. So there are a lot of tutorials that we've kind of put together. In fact, some of our colleagues are collating our tutorials into workbooks, right? So that you have comprehensive tutorials. If you're somebody who's just getting started, I want to understand in depth into Python. How do I do that? You can kind of enable yourself. And our tutorials are also not documentation for the sake of documentation. We have an entire content team that focuses so much on keeping our content simple as well. They write from a very end user perspective, where like the person who asked the question, who is brand new to this kind of space, how do you explain that in really simple terms? And we've also included step-by-step procedure to get started. What is the code you need to run? And our team that builds these content, they themselves run all of these on a brand new machine. So we don't assume that a person has previous knowledge into that sort of like a subject. So we almost assume if this person is new to a topic, what are the things that they would need to get started? What is the step-by-step process they need to follow to achieve a certain task? So to answer the person's question, I think just looking up our tutorials. I also gave the voucher for the free $100 credit. So if you're a starter, just want to play around, don't want to make upfront investments. So that's something that you can also kind of use, get onto the platform and test out. Another resource that I can hand out is we also run a lot of webinars. So look up for DigitalOcean webinars. A lot of these eventually make it to our YouTube channel. So that's where you can look up all our previous webinars, but also for the upcoming schedule, look up digitalocean.com and you'll find the list of webinars that are coming up where we try to educate what is top of mind for developers, what are startups building, what is their architecture decision that they've made while choosing a cloud provider, while building a stack on DigitalOcean versus other cloud providers, or even from a DigitalOcean perspective, there are so many decisions you need to make, whether you want to build a cloud native environment, whether you want to use Kubernetes. As you scale, will your infrastructure be easily able to scale, or you will have to kind of migrate and kind of re-architect your tech stack? So all of those things are something our developer advocates, our solutions engineers do on a daily basis. And as well as on social media, we run something called Cloud Chats, which is much more informal, very similar to this format, right? A few people coming together and having a chat. So those are other resources as well if you are just getting started and want to learn more.
Okay, there's this question from Nihar Patnaik asking, can you speak about where that go? The ROI of using DigitalOcean's cloud versus competition?
Yeah, I think it's tricky topic, but again, I think cost is really one of our primary benefits. So especially if you're a startup, want really simple cloud infrastructure, getting started on DO really is a lot of less upfront investments, right? What to make this answer really easy, we have something called the price calculator on our website. If you want to just look up what a certain configuration, again, for Nihar's configuration, I don't know if you're trying to use one droplet or one virtual machine, whether you need storage for your application, whether you need to take backups, you need to take snapshot, because all of that becomes important when you're thinking about how you're building your application, right? So on our website, if you go to our pricing calculator, you can see how our price compares to some of the other cloud players' pricing, and especially if some of your applications are bandwidth intensive, that's where I think a lot of startups struggle, because bandwidth based on the traffic that your application sees or your website sees can really fluctuate your billing that you see at the end of the month. And bandwidth is also where DigitalOcean really is extremely competitive. For 1 GB, we charge 1 cent per GB. So that's, again, especially a lot of video streaming, gaming, edtech companies that are extremely video intensive. And in the last 1 year, I think a lot of us have been consuming a lot more video, right? A lot more bandwidth. So that's where we are really differentiating ourselves. So really the ROI is our key value proposition. And I would really kind of encourage you to kind of take a look at our pricing page as well as our pricing calculator. And maybe just to wrap up my response, the other way that ROI is great on DigitalOcean is for something like even support, right? Customer support. We don't charge. We believe if you're using our platform and you run into an issue, you need an issue fixed, we should do it for you free of cost. So customer support is free of cost at DigitalOcean, whereas some of the other cloud providers bake in a certain percentage to be supported when you have an issue as well. So that's also another way the ROI becomes a lot more better on DigitalOcean.
Yeah, there was this Andreessen Horowitz report earlier this year, which kind of said public cloud can become quite expensive because of bandwidth. I think is a big reason why that happens beyond a certain scale and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I believe Dropbox moved completely from public cloud to a private cloud or something like that. I remember them saying.
Yeah.
But tell me, I mean, you said when we first started writing about public clouds, AWS, of course, was the pioneer there. I mean, the whole vision was of this simplicity that you are talking about DigitalOcean now. I mean, the whole point then was also simplicity. You are saying those clouds have become a lot more complicated now. They're no longer as simple as they once thought they would be?
Yeah, I think it's a tough line to tread and understandably, right? When you want to be a provider that caters to a very large user base, depending on customized sort of like offerings for different sectors, different domains, you end up introducing a lot more products and features. And we all understand that it's so easy to keep adding new products and new features, and your customers really struggle with being able to understand a new offering every 2 months, right? For them to keep up with it. So we believe it's so easy to add more products and features and complicate your entire portfolio, but to be really mindful about why you're introducing a certain product and how is it kind of contributing to the larger end users usage, right? So that's something that we focus on. And this is something that we speak about a lot internally as well. Leonardo da Vinci's statement, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, right? It's so easy, and especially in the world that we live today, as a startup founder, right? If you are looking to, let's say, for example, start an e-commerce business, and you want a tech stack that supports your business, you can easily get so overwhelmed with the options that are out there. You want to get on the public cloud. First, you need to understand public cloud, their offerings, and why you need a certain plan versus another plan where this is offering 100 GB of storage, 200 GB of storage. This is better than that. Now there are other new technologies. If someone says, hey, get onto Kubernetes, it's the latest thing. Containerize your application so that tomorrow, if you scale, let's say 1 million users come to your website and you want to immediately scale, you need to be containerized. So very soon from your initial vision of building an e-commerce business, you've now got into this mess of, I have 100 options, and then my coding language, my, what software do I use? All of those just pile up options for you. I think to your point, Sujit, I think a lot of people can claim that they want to do simplicity, but it's very hard. And we've been trying to do that, right? And for us also, it is tough, especially as we want to kind of grow upmarket, cater to a lot more startups and enterprises, and people ask for a lot of products and features, right? So we have this thing called user voice, where users tell us what product should we be next building, right? There are lots of options that come to us. For us to be able to prioritize which ones do we prioritize, and which is ultimately in that philosophy of keeping it simple without adding products or features for the sake of just having a massive portfolio of products and catering to everybody, right? So that's why at the beginning of my presentation as well, I said, we don't cater to enterprises. We cater to startups and developers because that's the community we understand. And we want to super serve while remaining true to our vision of keeping things simple, because it's very easy to lose track of that simplicity and trying to cater to everybody out there.
But one of your slides also said that you've been introducing more and more features and products over the past few years as newer and newer demands came. I guess AWS also treaded that path. They initially would have thought to keep it simple, but then as more and more demands came, they must have been pressured into. So you're sure you won't go that way, is it?
We try not to, and that's where I think the way our executives are defining, our leaders are defining the vision for the company is saying what we want to, right? It's easy to say we want to do this, and eventually we want to get to enterprises. We want to do everything that other cloud providers are doing. We could want to go there, but it's hard to say we'll stick to our initial vision, but also really listen to our users. Times are changing, technology is changing. Infrastructure as a service was what a lot of people wanted earlier. Today they want PaaS. And our end users are saying we want more abstracted kind of like layers, right? So introducing PaaS becomes really important. And today cloud native and Kubernetes is something that people are really using, and that's the way to go, while adding a lot of benefits like keeping their infrastructure really portable, so that as they scale, they're able to kind of lift and shift instead of having to redeploy and remanage and build their infrastructure. So that's a hard thing to track as well. So continuing to add more mindfully, introducing the features that are required. So that's the way we are headed, Sujit, and hopefully we'll continue to stick to our vision.
Okay. I just wanted to add to that particular point, question. Is the complexity primarily related to the fact that there are just too many products in these other clouds that we're talking about? I mean, too many solutions, and you don't know which to pick and all that. Is there anything else? Are there any contracts to be signed or things like that?
Absolutely. I think there is definitely complexity in the pricing and the product offering itself, but also in the pricing, right? Sometimes there are businesses that are built to help you understand another cloud provider's pricing, right? Because especially as you start using a lot more products, just to understand what your core compute pricing is, your bandwidth pricing, your support pricing, that also gets included, all of that. So a lot of startups need additional help externally to help figure out their certain bills, right? So there is complexity from a billing perspective. And also, like I said, I think vendor lock-in is real. A lot of cloud providers want to keep businesses close to their heart. So trying to build a lot more closed ecosystem, which is you start using one of their products, you kind of become very dependent on using other products. And that's the business model, right? So that's where I think our focus on open source and helping encourage open source so that we almost democratize the use of best of breed software is something that we are focused on.
Shilpa?
Yeah, we have this question from Lalita DS. Are you compliant as per Indian data laws? Do you have any data centers in India for Indian users?
Yes. So Indian data center, we have one data center in Bangalore. And again, I think our website has a bunch of data center certifications that are available. So we encourage users to go check out the certifications. Again, different domains require different certifications. So you can check out which are the certifications that you require. And our team is always, security team is always trying to update the certifications that are there for our data centers. So that's available publicly as well.
For startups, what? Public cloud is the automatic choice now?
I think it's probably for the best. I think if you're a startup trying to just get started, it makes it a lot more easier, right? Because you are not owning a lot of the infrastructure. It's pay as you use. Today, if you're a very small company just getting started, upfront, you don't have to make those investments, right? You're just getting started. Your usage is really small. Tomorrow, let's say your startup suddenly became an overnight success, lots of users coming, you have the option to scale very easily. And that's the benefit of cloud in general, but also public cloud, because the pricing is really very cost effective compared to some of the others like on-premise and all of that. That's the power of the cloud itself. But today also startups are supported very well. The ecosystem has a lot of accelerators, incubators. Companies like DigitalOcean partner with these companies to provide a lot of support. We have a startup program called Hatch, where we partner with accelerators, incubators, VC firms to give 1 year worth of credits for startups where they can use our platform for free for 1 year. In addition to just using our platform for free, we also provide technical support and mentorship as they're trying to make these architectural decisions for their businesses, Sujit. So to answer your question, I think it almost becomes an obvious choice, and for good, because today startups are born in the cloud and really have that sort of like agility to go to market sooner, but also to be able to scale up and the power to fail, if you will, right? Like tomorrow, if you want to shut down your startup, you don't have all of this infrastructure that you purchased, or it makes it very simple and agile for you.
Okay, okay. How much has your business grown in the last 1 year?
We are a publicly traded company. So in fact, we have our revenue calls quarter on quarter. In the last year, we were at 318 million globally. And again, I think our earnings call is coming up pretty soon. So
India, can you give me some measure of increase in the last 1 year?
Yeah,
since the pandemic and all that?
Correct. We don't share India-specific numbers, but again, I think at a global level, that's what we share those numbers.
Okay. Shilpa?
Yeah, Mohan, if you can talk about the kind of contributions, pull requests that you've got for the Hacktoberfest, and the kind of entries that you got this year. Is it much more than what it was previously?
Yeah, usually our team takes a couple of weeks to kind of tabulate all of these, because even pull requests, we get a lot of pull requests, but this time they have to be marked as valid pull requests, right? So that counting takes a little more time. So to have exact numbers will take us a couple of weeks, and we typically put out a report in terms of what year-on-year contribution was. But just from the early signs we've had more than 150,000 people who've signed up and participated so far in Hacktoberfest. And we still have a couple of days to go, and our team is doing something called the Big Push. It's another event where they're trying to help people to contribute, because people start off at the beginning of October with all the right intentions to do it, but I think they get so busy, they haven't finished all their pull requests. So to remind them, to encourage them, to help them find the right projects that they can contribute to, our team is also organizing a little event called the Big Push to help people put in their pull requests.
Is there something you can say about the kind of projects that the Indian participants get involved in? What kind of solutions, what kind of projects do they get involved in?
There are a lot of tech projects as well, but even, for example, Maya Data is one of our customers and also a very active open source contributor in the community. So they have a Kubernetes offering, and year on year, a lot of people come and build documentation for them. Even AppWrite, right? They're one of our partners. Who else? Yeah, I think top of mind, there are these open source developer kind of technologies who typically host, but also if you could be an open source contributor or a maintainer yourself trying to build an application. If that's built on open source technologies, you can invite contributions to that as well.
Okay. Anything else, Shilpa?
Yeah, you acquired Nimbella. If you can talk about, how you're leveraging Nimbella across your portfolio.
Yeah, so Nimbella brings in an additional thing, right? I think serverless is something that a lot of startups are asking for, where they don't want to manage infrastructure. They want serverless capabilities, which again is built on Kubernetes offerings. Kubernetes itself is an open source kind of technology that everyone's kind of adopting very well, right? So Nimbella, we made the acquisition, but we are kind of integrating that into our product portfolio, and early part of next year is when we'll introduce that as part of our portfolio. So it adds additional capabilities and makes it really easy for developers and startups to deploy their applications without having to worry about their infrastructure decisions.
So serverless is becoming big, is it?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Right now, what, there are still some technology challenges, or what would stop a person from not going to serverless?
I think it's an up and coming technology. I think the adoption curve, if you will, I think it's getting there. A lot of people are trying to educate themselves, understand how this is happening, and in fact, even with us, right? I think as an infrastructure as a service provider, we're getting onto serverless. So integrating that into our product portfolio, I think all of that is just a matter of time. I think a lot of people will adopt cloud native and platform as a service and function as a service, which is where the serverless space, plays.
Okay. If a startup with a totally business folk who don't understand technology, how easy is it for them to get into something like DigitalOcean and quickly start off?
Yeah, we do have those non-tech founders who reach out to us as well. So they need some guidance, especially if they want to kind of do a lot of it themselves. A lot of other entrepreneurs choose to have one or two people who they hire to manage their entire infrastructure. So I think that's probably the best route, because you can be a non-tech founder and still get started. But at some point, I think just the amount of time you would end up spending on understanding the technology or even following instructions to get started, right? I think, so it's not impossible, but that's where we've seen a lot of startups play.
Okay. Shilpa, we are almost out of time, I think. Anything else? Yeah, great. No, very, very newer kinds of choices emerging. Fascinating the way technology develops. I was telling you earlier before the discussion about this other model where, like a private cloud, the service provider owns it and it gives you a dedicated server and or IT infrastructure, but then on a pay-as-you-go model. So yeah, variety of these options now emerging. Great to hear all this, and of course, Hacktoberfest. All the best to you. I'm sure it'll grow. Like you said, the open source. We are hearing more and more about the open source community in India, and like you said earlier, I think in India is going to get pretty big there. Yeah. Thanks so much, Mohan, for being on this platform. Hope to have you again all the time. Yeah,
it's my pleasure. Thanks, Sujit. Thanks, Shilpa.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mohan, and thank you for partnering with Techies and giving out the $100 cloud credits. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, bye.